Today I have Mr. Nick Anderson joining me to talk to you guys about the topic we're going to be learning and discussing about assimilation. And so, Nick, what is your what's your background, where you come from, and how long you been in the Dubuque area?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me, Caprice. So I've actually been in Dubuque for since 2020. Been in Dubuque for 9 years, 9.5 years. Came here for college, stuck around after I graduated, moved around different careers, and now I run a financial planning practice here locally. So definitely a long journey, doing a lot of different kinds of work and also dancing professionally as well.
Okay. And so, Nick, have you ever heard the word assimilation?
Yes.
And what's the first thing come to your mind when you hear the word assimilation? And have you ever been a person that has been a partaker in the definition of the word assimilation?
Yeah, I would definitely say yes. My first thoughts of assimilation is, to be completely honest, why African Americans in general, how we've ended up here and how we have our culture the way it is. So my first thought always goes to we had to assimilate to form what our culture is now being taken over here. Um, but thinking of terms of modern day, being part of any kind of team or joining any kind of culture, like for instance, I ran cross country and track in college. So assimilating to that team culture, what they do, what they value, the same thing with any kind of team or collaborative effort. You're picking up on what the group already does and hopefully add value to that.
So let me ask. So is there some things that could a person assimilate into something that may not be right?
Absolutely.
Give me an example.
Our government. I think of a lot of, actually, I'll use a better example. I'll say because I'm friends with lawyers. So and I think it probably happens a lot in different industries, but just because talking to a few younger guys, going into the industry, you're bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, I want to help the world, that you kind of get acclimated to the culture of what's going on there, where the business is making money and helping out the bigger paying clients, still helping people, but less helping more money. So when that becomes more of a priority, you assimilate to that culture, especially as a lawyer coming out. If you're going to be hired by a firm that's going to pay you $200,000 a year, you're going to say yes to that check and assimilate to that culture as well. So I've been seeing that with a few people. I'm sure that happens across different industries in similar situations, but that's just the first thing that comes to mind.
So let's look at this. So, you know, growing up in some I guess some urban areas. Have you ever lived in an urban area?
Mine was more suburban. So I grew up in Sauk Village or Chicago Heights in Illinois, so south suburbs of Chicago. So basically, everyone that came from the urban area went down south to where we were. So in a sense, it was becoming that urban area, but it was still technically suburban.
Okay, so that could have been a depiction of some things that may have been um, in that particular culture of environment because of the influence that was coming there. So did you see any assimilations in high school?
Not necessarily. I would say it's actually I would kind of compare it to how Dubuque is now. It's like the clash of assimilation. So when you have the more dominant culture is being more neighborly, actually looking out for one another, actually knowing your neighbors, whatever. That's a clash of cultures coming from a lot of the folks that were coming from the more urban areas. That sense of that specific sense of community was different compared to who was already living there. That's a lot of what I see with Dubuque going on, or what has been going on. It's just clash of different values of what's considered a community, what's considered neighborly, and how my town and how Dubuque kind of looks at it is like, hey, you guys aren't assimilating what's going on. And it's just this clash of that kind of culture.
So let me ask. So when I think of the word assimilate, I'm thinking about like if a person don't assimilate the dominant the dominant culture, do they get eliminated if they don't assimilate to the dominant culture?
I think it depends. Um, I feel like, if you're, let's say, for example, in sports, like if you're not assimilating into the culture, depends on what kind of value you're bringing. If it's in a good way that you're not assimilating into the culture, because I don't know if you've seen, what was it, The Last Dance, Jordan's like series on ESPN with his documentary thing. And when he came into the league, he talked about the culture of the team, how it wasn't very good. He came in, he was serious. He's like, yo, we can't be doing this stuff. I'm not trying to be out smoking and drinking and all that stuff. He's like, I'm here to play ball and do my job. So had he assimilated to that culture, it might have been a whole different story for what Jordan's legacy is like.
So basically, there has to be something that comes along and challenge the norms.
Yeah. I think there definitely comes a time where the norms shouldn't be the norms and they deserve to be challenged. But sometimes the norms are there for a reason, for good reason. I think it's all definitely situational.
But do you agree that there always come a time in history, throughout human history, that change is inevitable?
Yes.
Why do you think that change is more powerful than assimilation?
Because change is always constant. Not everyone's, what is it? I'm trying to think what they say, the guarantees in life, death, taxes, and change. you know, but assimilation isn't always necessarily guaranteed. It's not always required, but change is always going to happen. And whether that be external, environment change, whatever, or internal, people working on themselves, there's always something that's going to be changing. I wouldn't say necessarily one holds weight over the other because they're both going to happen, but we just know one of them is inevitable and constant.
And that's change.
Yeah.
So basically, I thank you for sharing this insight, and I hope the people that's watching this that they could get a feel of a different feel of another mindset that's here in Dubuque, that's about the betterment of Dubuque and being a part of the solutions.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Thank you, Nick.
No problem. Take care.
All right.